Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together, your number one stop for all secular homeschooling podcast information. And today we're going to be talking about more 3D printing. We talked about last week and got you really excited and jazzed about the idea of using 3D printing. We made the value argument if you're going to go out there and spend a bunch of money on manipulatives and things for your homeschool space, making the argument that maybe you could print them and save the money. And then also you have a 3D printer that you can continue to use. So kind of some ideas there. Today we're going to be talking about, basically getting started with printing in your homeschool and all the information. This is going to be kind of a technical podcast, not necessarily like technical and how, all the little nuances of the 3D printing, but we're going to be talking about the different types of printers that are available, the different types of filament that are available, and maybe some of the other features as well. So you can kind of get you, maybe if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do this, let's bookmark this podcast for later. I'll re-listen to it when I go and get that printer or when I want to make that decision. I can listen to this again. But we're going to give you all the basic information that we've learned over the last few months, 2 months or so, on what we've been doing. So Ariel, let's get started. Intro to Homeschool 3D Printing. What a great title.
Yeah, we just wanted to focus on the practical stuff. So, there are lots of 3D printers out there. Some of them that are easier. You may have heard of like Toy Box. We're going to focus today on Bamboo. Bamboo Labs is a printer company that...
And spell it for the people. It's not Bamboo is the way you think.
That's true. It's
a good tech name, right?
That's right. BAMBU.
BAMBU. And I'll put a link down below to the exact printer that we have.
Right. So Bamboo, I want to focus on that because they have really made 3D printing so user-friendly, and the printers are pretty affordable. So they have two main type printers. They have an A1 and an A1 mini. And we have the mini, but I'm going to buy the A1 here in the next couple weeks. So we'll have an A1. And those are just two different styles as far as the size of print bed. So you'll hear that term like print bed. And that's basically the little plate that they print on. So whereas the A1 mini will print about 8.5 inches square, the A1 will print like 11 inches square.
So basically, if you're thinking about it, the printing volume is defined by the base and then how high the head can go.
Which is usually the same. It's usually a cube. So if it can print 8.5 by 8.5, it'll also print 8.5 tall or sometimes taller.
Okay.
So that's just kind of gives you an idea. So like with the A1, for example, I could print a complete helmet. So if I wanted to print like a Roman helmet, I could do that.
Sure.
So there's that kind of stuff. It's like, wow, okay, that's a totally different level of printing.
Okay, that's really cool.
So there's two main printer types. If you start looking up printers, and you, by no means you have to stay with this brand, but it's just the one that we know best, and it's really easy to use. So I wanted to kind of highlight it. But you're going to hear two types of printers. There's FDM printers and SLA printers. So FDM is your fusion deposition modeling printers. This is the beginner, affordable type of printing. It's really easy. It's really versatile. It's popular. It's not going to do all the materials. The other one, SLA, stereolithography printing, is going to print more material types. It's like a resin-based printing. It involves some chemicals you have to do to cure the prints and all that stuff, which involves proper ventilation and yada, yada, yada. So if you hear anybody talking about SLA or resin printing, just put that aside. Our home printing, unless you're doing something in your garage and you're set up a fume hood, if you're doing just regular normal home printing, you're going to want an FDM printer.
Okay, so you said the second one, to kind of ignore, has kind of an off-gassing issue where
And there's post-processing with chemicals you have to do.
Okay. So that's something that's too advanced for most people. So you're saying,
right? Like maybe they'll have one of those in a makerspace. So that's the other thing. If you have a makerspace near you and they have 3D printers that you can use, this might be helpful information to know that that's going to be a more advanced type of printer that they may have.
And what do you know? What the difference is? Like, is it like the resolution of the printing?
So it is. It doesn't have the same like lines. We have SLA printers at work.
Okay.
So that's the way we print it at my office. And we have several of them. And the post-processing is with chemicals. There's a smoothness. There's also quite a bit more strength.
Gotcha.
So there's a bunch of different, benefits. But if you have a makerspace that has one, just know that is going to be a advanced level of printing. Okay. Your FDM printers are going to be you're painting with a little print head and it's going to do with the layer lines and it's not with toxic chemicals.
And so that's the Bamboo printer is the one that does the FDM one.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So what most people have at home is an FDM printer.
Gotcha.
If you've ever been to a craft fair or something and you see like the little articulated dragons stuff, those are all printed on FDM printers.
Okay.
Majority of people who are printing at home are printing on FDM. I just wanted to mention it in case you see it online somewhere and somebody says something about SLA, or you have a makerspace that has SLA. Just know that's an advanced type of printing with a lot of post-processing required. One of the things you have to be a little bit careful about in the world of 3D printing is that there's a lot of very technical people that get very geeky on this and can sometimes not be very helpful to beginners.
Sure.
Right. And so you'll ask a question on like a Facebook group or something and you'll have to go, well, actually issues, that's blah, 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 blah. You have these people that are kind of rude. Yeah. I really recommend.
Or they have, as I always say, tonal problems.
Right. So there's like a Bamboo A1 user group on Facebook, which has some of that toxicity for new people. Like, come on, be nice. But there's a really great women and girls. So if you or your daughters are looking at this, there's a women and girls Facebook, which I find is much nicer to new beginners. And there's some beginner 3D printing Facebook groups that might be helpful too. So we'll put some links in the show note if that's something that you want to take a look at that community.
Why choose the Bamboo A1 and the A1 Mini? Why would that be a good place for people to start?
So they're really easy to use.
And this isn't an ad. We're not being paid by Bamboo.
No, we are not. Although that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because I could get more filament. But no, we're not being paid by them. It's really user-friendly. So one of the problems about 3D printing is that there's all these factors have to go into place. One of the things is that the print bed has to be perfectly level. If it's not level, then it can't. I mean, you got this tiny little nozzle. It's a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and it's got to paint these little tiny lines all perfectly.
It's literally just oozing out.
It's oozing, and it's got to paint it in exact. So the problem that we had when we borrowed a 3D printer years ago was we could never get the bed perfectly level and everything. So this has auto bed leveling. Yep. It has like a flow calibration thing so that it makes sure that it oozes out nice and smoothly, so that the temperature is regulated. It's just really easy to use.
It's not only heating the head, which is where the filament comes through, but the bed is actually heated as well.
Exactly, both.
Yeah, and so the bed gets hot, and not hot like it'll burn your fingers to the touch. It's warm though. It's fairly warm.
I mean, it could burn. I mean, don't touch.
Yeah, don't touch. Yeah. But the bed gets heated up, and it's funny when you actually start it. The whole thing is.
Well, it does a vibration compensation.
Yeah, it does a whole test and everything. It's really wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sure it does a lot of self-calibrating features
before you print.
Exactly, because the worst thing you could do is do like a 7-hour print, and it just goes haywire, right?
Yeah,
or you can't ever print anything. This is one of those that I was so leery when I opened this on Christmas morning. I was like, oh boy. I knew that it was probably kind of expensive, and I was like, oh, I hope this isn't hard to use because I think it would be great. But I literally opened it, put the app on my phone, and I started printing something within minutes.
You printed the boat.
Right. So the first thing you're going to print is called Benchy. It's a little tiny tugboat or a little fishing boat. It's a little tiny boat. And it's just to test the printer out. But this was so easy to set up and use. It was like I was printing within minutes, and then we printed nonstop for days. Like I had prints going constantly.
I feel
so easy.
I feel you have been printing nonstop for months now.
Yeah. I do. I print a lot.
We have a method now where it's like Yeah, you'll say the print's clear, and I pull the plate off, put a new plate
While
on.
I'm at work.
Yeah, and then you queue up so like you're queuing up things from work. That goes back to the ease of use.
Right. It's really user friendly.
Yeah.
You know, I said on the last podcast, I can queue things up from my phone or from the computer. I can also, some models, you know, I want to mess with on the computer for whatever reason. Like I want to print multiples of them, or, well, actually I can do that from my phone, but maybe I don't want to print all the parts. Sometimes you'll find a model that has like a bunch of bins for you to organize stuff in. Like right now I'm organizing the junk drawer because, you know, it's the junk drawer. It's always chaos.
Yeah.
And
now it's going to be an organized junk drawer.
right. And so I'm printing bins, and the file has like all these different bin sizes. And I wanted to change. One of them was slightly too big for my plate, so I wanted to adjust it a little bit. I did it all on the computer. But then I was able to send all the print files to the printer, even though it was already printing something, so that from work I could just hit go on the next file that's saved. The printer has a little SD card in it, micro SD. It has a little bit of memory. So you can even queue things up. So it's really, really user friendly. Even if you don't want to ever monkey with a model, even if you just want to send things from your phone.
You just want to print existing models. Now, the thing I love about it more than anything is how small it is. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's very small.
It's very small. It's compact. You've printed this kind of riser storage system underneath it, so it's actually up another
I printed
4 or
like
5 inches.
some boxes underneath
You can store all your bins and stuff, but it's really compact. And you did this funny thing where the spool normally is off to the right side, but you actually printed some pieces to move the swing arm to the other direction.
Yeah.
And it actually made it a little bit more compact.
Yeah, so I actually made it. It's kind of fits in a 1 foot square footprint, and it prints. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
So it's really great. It works with all the commonly available filaments, which is just perfect for all of your creative projects.
And we'll talk about the different
we'll talk about filaments.
Yeah, we'll talk about different filaments, but it's very reliable. We have not had very many bad prints.
We haven't. And it's really low maintenance. It does tell me when I have to, there's certain axes that the bed moves and the arm moves that, you know, with the nozzle head on it. And those need oiling and stuff, lubrication sometimes. And so it'll let me know, but the maintenance has been really low so far.
And a few times you've asked me to change filament, and I haven't really been using it very much. I've been watching you use it. And the whole UI, the little screen, it's all touch screen.
It's a little touch screen.
And it walks you through the process of changing the filaments and make sure you do all like it's just very user friendly. Now, I mean, if you're not a very techie person, I still think you could use this fairly easily.
Yeah. I think it's very, I mean, our kids are doing it now. Like at this point, our kids can change the plates. They can look through, they look on my phone with me. They select files. They select what to print. Our daughter can change filament, our 9-year-old. Like it's not that hard. So if it's something that you're thinking more for your homeschooler, this is not a hard thing to do. So,
well, and the funny thing is I realized some of the first things you're going to print on your printer is to make your printer better.
I mean, well, yeah. Did you kind of bling out your printer? Like I printed like strain reliefs for some of
talk to them about the black catch right there. What is it called?
Oh, it's a poop bin.
It's the poop bin.
So your printer, as it's calibrating, it's going to poop out a certain amount of filament as it like adjusts the heating of the nozzle so the flow rate's correct.
And normally it has like a little thing where it
has a little arm. It like shoves it off.
It cuts it real quick and it just shoves it off. And when if you don't have a catch there, it just starts falling on the desk, right?
Right, yeah. So you know, first thing you do is you print a little poop basket. You print, I printed some strain reliefs. I printed a handle for the top of it so I could move it around.
Little bins to hold all the various little pieces, like your oil and your cleaning tools. And
I printed a little toolbox.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff was just available. I just found somebody's model and I hit go and it printed it.
Yeah.
So talking about cost a little bit, so this printer was about $200.
I got an extra plate and a few other things. So
But
it was like $250.
But the base printer is with a
having
with a
two
plate.
plates has been nice.
Yeah, I definitely think 2 plates is worth it because when your print comes off, it's hot. It's not super hot. So we can pull the plate off with our hands. It's not like that. But you don't want to remove your print right away because
let it cool.
It's got to cool, or else it's going to leave residue on the plate. You got to keep the plate bed really clean because you want the next time you print for the plastic to adhere to it. It melts and it needs to kind of stick to that.
And there's actually
plate.
some texture to the plate, just a tiny bit.
These are textured plates that come with it. You can also get smooth plates, and there's different, depending on materials. You can get it really wonky, but initially, if you just wanted to get the printer, like the lowest cost startup, $200 about will get you just the printer itself with a plate on it that comes with a plate. This will only print a single color at a time. So when you look online and you see all these really beautiful multicolor prints, you got a dragon or whatever, and it's got different color eyes and tail, all these things. Those are multicolor prints. So I can do a little bit of multicolor printing in that you can pause it and then switch it. So like I made a nameplate for the top of my Stanley Cup because they gave them to us at work and we all have the same ones. So I made a little nameplate and it had my name on it. And so I just paused the print in the software right before it went to start writing my name, and I changed the spool for a different color. And then it was able to print my name differently so that my name really pops and it looks really cool. So you can do things like that where if it's on a different level, like if you wanted to print like a topographic map, for example.
Just to remind everybody, it's printing like floors of a building.
Right. It's layer by layer.
Level. So it's appearing vertically.
Yeah,
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you wanted to print a topographical map, for example, you could print that in multicolor with just this printer without anything extra, because every time you would get to a new elevation, you could swap the color and then print that layer on that new elevation, and it would be fine. So you could do that with this. But this system also has something called an AMS, which is an automatic material system, which holds 4 spools on it. And so you can hold different colors. And this actually has 4 little input tubes to the nozzle.
To the nozzle head, yeah, that moves around and prints.
Exactly. So what it can do, if you have the AMS, is it can actually print in all the colors, up to 4 colors at a time, right? And you can still swap in and out with that if you needed to. But it poops a little bit more because every time that it changes colors, it needs to purge the old color and successfully load the new color, so you don't get like let's say you're going from white to black. You don't want to, when it changes over, you don't want it to print in gray. You want it to print fully in black. So it has to purge all that white and load all that black. So there's a little bit more waste, but you can print all the colors. So if you got that system, it's like 360. It's the printer and the system together.
Yeah.
My recommendation, if you think that you are going to like 3D printing, just buy that combo, because we didn't get that combo. And if you don't, buying the AMS by itself is like $275 on its own. On its own, wow. So they mark it up incredibly to just buy the multicolor. So I would say if you're going to do it, splurge and get that. The A1 Mini is great. The A1 has got that 11-inch print bed, and Bamboo has other printers. Mm-hmm. They have that print other materials and things that we probably will never need. But the print bed size on those other printers that are really expensive, that are $1,000, those ones never get bigger than what the A1 can print. So one of the things when you start looking in the computer program about, or the app of all the things you can print, is you have to be aware if you have the Mini, you can't print everything it shows because some of this stuff needs more space. And in the app, there's a filter where you can select which printer you can do. So if you just print the A1, it will show you just the files that can be supported on the A1, right, or the A1 Mini. Just the A1 Mini, exactly. Yeah. So one of the things I'm looking forward to about getting the A1 is that everything in the entire app will be printable by me because I'll have the biggest bed size. So that's pretty cool. That one, if you get the combo version, it's about $500. So we talked a little bit about the AMS, and that is about filament. So let's go into the different types of filament. Right. What types are there? Why would you use one versus the other? Is it expensive? And what's the complexity there? And where do you buy? Right. So the basic type of filament you'll use is called PLA. It's a polylactic acid. So there's PLA, PLA Plus. You'll find PLA Basic and Matte. And those are just about the difference in finish. So basic versus matte is obviously just going to be how smooth it is. The matte texture is a little rougher. Gotcha. The PLA, and the PLA Plus is just a little bit stronger version of PLA. I print 99% of everything in PLA. Mm-hmm. It's super easy to print with. It's not like it's brittle or anything. It's pretty firm. It's pretty firm. I've printed clips with it, bins, decorative stuff, toys for the kids. Mm-hmm. I print just about everything in PLA. Is the stand that you built here that holds the printer everything PLA? Is in PLA. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all the drawers that I've printed, that stuff's all PLA. It's really easy to work with. You can buy rolls of it on Amazon for anywhere between $15 and $20 for 2.2 pounds of it. And that goes a long way. And it's kind of funny, a lot of the
measurement of the printing is in grams
Exactly.
and in time. And it's like,
Right,
how
yeah.
much grams are you using per unit time?
Exactly.
And that's really the calculus in there. So when you're talking about a 2-pound spool, like how many hours of printing is that?
Oh gosh, I've never even seen anything that used that many grams.
Yeah, like one thing, but like if you imagine like how long, so you're printing, I would say maybe 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long would that take? How long would a spool last at that rate?
So I would say I printed most of the day yesterday, and I used about 150 grams out of a kilogram
Oh, okay. Wow.
for an entire day's worth of printing.
1/10 of a thing. So if
Right.
it's $20,
That was
you're
like
looking
$2
at
to print,
$2
yes.
worth of stuff. Okay,
Right.
so that's good. They're kind of giving people an
And
idea.
I was printing bookends, by the way, to
Bookends.
organize all of our homeschool shelving.
Yep, yes, you did.
So that's what I was doing yesterday. Yeah, it really lasts a long time. So if I wanted to print, like I printed pin boxes to hold for the junk drawer, right? Each of those boxes was like 50 grams.
Yeah.
So $1 maybe.
And there's really very minimal waste. There's a little
Very
bit of the
minimal.
testing stuff. There's a little bit of the extruding at the beginning when it's trying to make sure it has the filament caught and printing correctly. I mean, you're talking maybe less than a gram of material right there. So there's not a lot of waste. And then in the printing aspect, when they're actually printing whatever the thing that you're designing, there's no waste there. It's really just extruding like a lightly melted plastic onto wherever it's printing, and then that is it. Like you're actually not wasting very much material. So it's a nice, very efficient use of the filament.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So the other kinds of filament, one is ABS, and that's going to be a stronger and more durable PLA.
Is this the one you used for the hangers
No,
that you built?
it wasn't.
No, okay.
It's really great for functional items that need a ton of wear and tear. It's very hard to print with, and I've never printed with ABS. It's more expensive as well.
Okay.
And then there's PETG. PETG is something I have printed with. It is a more durable than PLA. I believe it's less durable than ABS, but it's a lot easier to print.
Okay.
So I printed some backpack hangers I printed these really cool hangers because we have tons of with all our sports bags and dance bags and all this stuff and sewing club bags. And there's a bag for everything in our house at this point. Every time our kids grow out of a backpack, we just repurpose it for a club or Girl Scouts or something. So now we have tons of backpacks. And so they had these really cool hangers, and they'll actually, the heavy duty version of this hanger will hang like 50 pounds, but the ones I printed hang like 20 pounds. And so I printed them out of PETG.
And these were pretty chunky.
I mean, they are chunky. Yeah, they are
they're
really
big,
good.
yeah.
And so I printed these great backpack hangers. They're awesome. And because I knew they were going to not just take load, but flexure, that's where PETG, like our little poop bin, for example, I printed that out of PLA at first. And because it vibrates so much as the system does its vibration calibration and it runs, it actually broke the little arms on it that held it on.
Yeah, it was a stress fracture.
It was. So I had to reprint it out of PETG. So PETG is like, I've only printed in 3 materials. I printed in PLA and PETG when I need more strength. And the last one is called TPU. And that one's really flexible.
Yeah, it was almost like almost rubbery. like, in
Yeah,
a sense,
exactly. Yeah. And I did it so that I could print little feet for the bottom of the drawers that I printed to go underneath.
There's a friend
the
at
printer.
work brought you a spool. Yeah.
Yeah, so that I could, because they basically acted as like little rubber vibration feet. So you don't print very often in TPU, but it's something. It can print, there's other materials it can print, and there's a whole list of them. But in basic, I think the ones that you probably need to care about are PLA,
So you would say
PETG, and TPU.
For beginners, it's PLA.
PLA, and then those other two I think are ones. I mean, I printed in PETG within the first week of having my printer because I wanted to print those backpack hangers. So, and I would say your PETG and TPU are going to be more like $20 to $25 a roll. So they're just $5 or so more expensive than your PLA rolls. Same size.
So going from filament, let's talk a little bit about the workstation. Kind of, what should people think about when they are going to get a printer? They're going to set up an area to do printing. What type of considerations would they have, and what type of safety concerns would they need to be aware of?
Yeah, so unlike your SLA toxic, chemical type printers, the FDM printers are really low fume. As long as you're printing, basic PLA, it's not really doesn't really fume much. You don't need like big ventilation. It probably wouldn't put it in your bedroom.
Yeah, there is a smell. There's a smell.
There is, but it's like a light burning plastic smell.
Yeah, very light, very light.
So you don't need extensive ventilation, but do put it in a room that you can ventilate. Like we have it in our office, and we have a fan in here, so we can do that. But you if you're going to put it in a bedroom, you're going to want good ventilation. You might not want to do that while you're sleeping, but it's pretty low fume.
Well, the other thing that kind of we realized is when the printer is going or in some type of cool down state, there are fans on the printer that are spinning and cooling systems. That can be a little loud. So if you have like meetings in your
we have had several times we can't record the podcast because I've been in the middle of a print.
And even if you pause the print and just say hold on, the fans are still running.
Yeah,
and
they still run for a while.
Oh man, we can't record. That would be on the audio. So do be aware that there is a little bit of noise.
Right.
So that can be a little irritating.
I wouldn't put it in a garage space unless you have a garage that's more cleanly than any garage we've ever had.
Or seen.
Right, yeah. Because dust would be a problem, right? We want to keep it in a pretty clean environment because we don't want dust to get on the rails of the bed or of the print head, because then it won't travel as easily, and you would have sticking problems to the surface of it.
Yeah, so if you have like a dedicated room, like an office like we have, or if you have a spare room that's like relatives come once a year, a couple times,
right?
That would be another good room to put it into.
If you have a homeschool space, it could be good. Just know that it is distracting in a homeschool space because it's really fun to watch. So
it's really fun to
watch. It doesn't have an enclosure. You'll see some printers will have these big boxes around them. This one doesn't have an enclosure because it doesn't need to. It doesn't print things that need to be ventilated like that. So there's no enclosure on it. So it can be distracting. So definitely watch out for that.
And when it's printing, it's not that it's not super loud, but it isn't quiet. It's making noise, and so very often when you're printing, I will close the door. Now, from the printer to where I typically do homeschool is maybe 10 feet, maybe 10, 12 feet, right around a little bit of a turn, but straight into our kitchen here. I will sometimes have to close that door because it does make noise, and it can be distracting.
And the kids are excited. It does a little, when you start a print, it plays a little tune. When you finish a print, it plays a tune. It's funny. The kids come running wherever they're at in the house. They hear the tune and they are like, what just finished?
They know the sound. They all know. It's like, oh, mommy, a print finished.
Right. Because sometimes I print things for them. One of the things that's really fun to print on these is fidgets. So,
if you have a fidgety kid who needs fidget tools.
Fidget toys you can print with this are the best.
Yeah.
And inevitably some of that stuff ends up getting broken, and then it's like, great, I'll just print another one. I printed little flexi sharks for the kids and infinity cubes or whatever that are fidget.
The helical.
Spinners
and all that stuff. Yeah.
There's a lot of great fidget stuff you can do.
So what type of safety do you need to be aware of?
Just that, it does get hot and there are some pinch points, obviously. So you don't want to have little fingers.
Nope.
One of the things you can do is you can print overnight. I tend to not want to print like all night long because I do like to keep an eye on it, make sure that the print goes okay. If the bottom layer doesn't adhere well, then you can get a mess of string and it can cause some nozzle problems. So I usually want to see that like my bottom layer went down okay, and then I'll leave it. And like last night, I came down before we went to bed. I checked the bottom layer, went down, and then I went to bed. And then it finished by itself overnight. So you can totally do that. Just be aware that you want to keep it up higher or out of reach of little hands because it does get hot and there are some pinch points.
Well, and there's movement of the plate so that it's not just that.
Right.
So the plate does come out a little bit, the head does come across. So even within the print space, the safety space is probably a little bit larger than the actual dimensions of the unit because the plate does slide out past the edge of the unit when it's actually doing its printing.
Yeah.
Now, there's also a webcam on here, so there's a little bit of safety and concerns about that. So you can turn that on and off from within the software. You can even put a little piece of tape over it if that's something.
Well, and the webcam is pointed directly at the print plate.
Yeah.
So it can see just a tad bit beyond it.
Just a little bit past it. It would, the way it's oriented, you could see just through our doors. We have kind of a double door system.
And I think if you put like even a piece of cardboard on the left side of the printer, right past the edge of the printer is like a little wall, like a little barrier, like a little
Or if you just
poster board.
oriented where it's like only looking at a wall.
Right. Yeah. Or you put a little poster board there, then you wouldn't see anything else. You would just see your
So
print plate.
just be aware there's a webcam. So, it is connected to the Wi-Fi. So if there's some concern about hacking or whatnot, then you may want to orient that.
It doesn't have any audio on the webcam. It's just video.
It's meant for like time-lapse videos of your prints.
And it's also meant for you to check on your print to see if everything's going okay. So like from a distance, I can check and see that the layer's adhesing okay. It's not the greatest webcam. It doesn't have great resolution. So
it's not.
The other thing you have to think about is how you store your materials. So I have like little spool racks I printed that go on our bookcase here, and I have the spools lined up. If you live in a very humid area, you're going to have to worry about drying out your filament. So our area is not appreciably humid. Certainly we're here in the wintertime, so it's like not a big deal for us right now. But the filament can absorb moisture, and when it does, it gets brittle and it's not going to work as well. So they have these little filament dryer boxes. You can put them in like a cereal box or something with some desiccant packets, like some silicone packets. Or you can get a filament dryer. You can get one for $50 on Amazon, and you just throw it in there for 10 hours or something. It'll dry it out. Some people will say they never dry their filament. It's always fine. Other people, live in Florida and places like that. They've got to dry their filament all the time to use it. I've had it for 2 months. I have never dried my filament. It's always been fine. I do understand the TPU. Like my friend at work gave me some TPU to borrow to print those little anti-vibration feet. And that he did say he had to dry before he gave it to me because it does tend to not work. So
filament humidors is the thing.
Right.
All right, everybody's listening. They got understanding. They bought their printer. They're going to do PLA. Okay, let's walk through that process of doing their first print. What does that look like?
So for this, there's an app called Bamboo on my phone that I have, and I went ahead and logged in and registered my printer. It can see my printer on Wi-Fi. It knows it. I can easily search, and as you said, I can put in the filter. I have the A1 Mini. It will only show me different print files that have been made for the A1 Mini. And if I want to go to one of those, I hit the prepare to print button and I look at it and I can decide if I want to print all the parts or just some of the parts. I can deselect things. I can tell it this is the type of filament that I'm using. It has a whole little selector based on different brands. Oh, I have Bamboo Labs filament, or I have Overture filament, or eSun filament, or generic filament. And by the way, I purchased kind of whatever's cheapest on Amazon, and it has been just fine. So,
and I saw you shopping Alibaba.
I was looking at
or-
AliExpress to see if I could get Sunlu a little bit cheaper, but I don't think so. I think Amazon's still the best way to go. So I've bought like 5 different brands of filaments so far, and some printers are very finicky. This is also a thing that used to happen with printers. They were really finicky about the type of filament that they used. The Bamboo Lab doesn't seem to be very finicky. It pretty much prints everything.
That's cool.
Which is great. So I've gotten filament as low as like $11 a roll before, and it's printed great. So you find it in the app, you select what kind of filament, you hit go, and then it goes, and that's it. If you want to find a model from somewhere else that's not in the Bamboo Lab, app, which is also makerworld.com online. So they're the same database of files. If you want to find something from somewhere else, there's lots of different places like Thingiverse. I love a site called 3D Go. Because what it does is it takes files from MakerWorld, which is Bamboo's, it takes Thingiverse, it takes all these other places, and it aggregates them so you can search one place for everything. And you can save. So I save to like collections. I see models that I like. I'm like, oh, someday I want to print that. Like the Death Star clock, by the way, I'm going to print. Looks awesome with the TIE Fighter and then the X-Wing that go around for the minute and hour hands. Oh yeah, totally printing that. So, you can save collections and stuff. But what I like about that is that it can print from anywhere. So if you find something on there or on another site, there's lots of free model sites out there. There's tons. You can find it. And then there's a piece of software called Bamboo Studio, which is free. And you open the file in there, and then you hit a button called Slice. And what Slice does is it takes a 3D file, and it's going to basically put it into all those layers that you talked about, right? So it's going to take every layer of every elevation that the nozzle would go through as it builds your whole model. It's going to slice into all those pieces, and then it's going to write code, which is basically like XYZ coordinates.
Yeah, the path.
Right, the path that the nozzle head will go.
To print that one layer.
Exactly. And then once it's done, it will tell you how much time it will take, how much filament it will take, and what the cost is based on filament being, I think, like $20 a roll. It'll say, oh, this will cost you $1.39 to print or whatever.
Okay.
Gives you all the information. And then you hit print, and it sends it wirelessly right to your printer. So it's a really simple process.
So there's no CAD tools, no extruding, no
Nope,
nothing. So it's
nothing like that.
It's import the model, hit slice, and you haven't run into any problems as long as it's dimensionally within the bed's.
Usually if somebody has
capabilities.
already made this file, it's fine. Sometimes the software will say, hey, you can't print this. It needs supports. And what that means is that there's something overhanging. For Christmas, we did a late Christmas with your parents. I printed a bust of your dad's head for his library, and I put it into this software on Maker World. I just put a picture of him, and it did a revolve of his head, and it filled it all in, and then I was able to print this bust of him. Well, like his nose is, of course, overhanging. So you think about printing in layers, it has to have something to build on, right? Yeah. It can't just print in space. So if you have something, it can work at like a 45-degree angle. So if your print is growing at a 45-degree angle as it goes up, it's growing out, then it's fine. But if it goes into something sharper than that or longer than that, then it can't do that. I printed an eagle one time, for example, okay? And the wings were really far out. It can't do that by itself. What it needs to do is it makes things called supports, and they're like organic
roots. They look like roots and branches.
They do look like roots, yeah.
And they come
they're
down.
They're kind of creepy looking,
and
I think.
They're very organic in their design, but it's functional. Like it's holding up the print.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it just holds up those pieces.
And that is wasted material. So you're going to be breaking that off. And the first time you do it, you're very leery. But they are designed to snap off. So you give it a little bit of pressure, and they go pop, 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 and they all just come off in pieces. And you take these organic, and that's trash. You have to throw that away.
Just throw it away. Yeah. But usually, so there's a you'll hear this term called infill. Basically, what it means is that you're not going to print a solid object. Like let's say I'm printing a cube. You're not going to print a solid cube. You could, but wow, that would cost so much filament. Yeah, so when you see things be printed, and especially big things, you think, oh my gosh, that must have cost so much filament. Well, no, they usually have a percentage, what they call infill, in different geometric patterns. So usually it's like a 15 to 20% infill. So you see all the lines.
And it's a lattice inside.
It is.
So you can imagine a volume inside of it. It's like a honeycomb.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And the honeycombs are supports, and it's supporting the structure. And it gives it a lot of like rigidity, but minus the weight.
Right. Okay. I printed this little cat for our older daughter because it is like an eyeglass holder. So it's this little purple cat with little black eyes that I glued on, and it holds her glasses, and it is kind of big. I mean, I guess it's like 6 inches tall by 4 inches wide. It's kind of a big thing. Yeah. It is so incredibly light.
Yeah. It's deceptive.
It's totally deceptive because you're like, oh my gosh, I expected this to be this like big, heavy thing. And it's because of the infill so low, gives structure and strength without weight.
Yep. And I think that's cool. Now talk a little bit about the test prints and maybe some settings that go along with that.
Yeah. Usually you'll print that little benchy boat.
Benchy. And Benchy is very specific. You think it's kind of silly, but it's specifically designed to test the capabilities of the printer, and it's very small.
Right. So it tests your overhang, right? Yep. And because it has little line holes in the ends of the boat, right? So little line hawsers. So it's got those. So it's testing that. It has arches on the pilot house of the boat,
and it can print an arch, which is amazing to watch. So you can actually print like a porthole. Essentially.
Exactly. And so it prints those, and it tests that how it's looking. So you can have some problems when you 3D print. You can have something called stringing, which is where you've just got these little like hairs coming off of your print everywhere. A lot of times that has to do with either your filament not being dry enough or your nozzle temperature not being high enough for whatever type of material you're printing. I've had very few issues on this printer. Really, most of my issues have been with the bed not being clean enough. So when you first start, you'll print a couple of small objects. I mean, literally, I printed the benchy, and then I think one of the first things I started printing was I printed parts for the printer, like little things, and then I started printing little fidgets for the kids and toys, and I mean, very little, printing settings, messing with things, getting it perfect. I did very little of that, which is, I think, a testament to a good printer.
Yeah, by the end of that first day, you had it set up. I think you had it set up within an hour. Just a couple pieces, they all snap together, and then I think for the rest of the day, you just printed nonstop.
Yeah,
and
it never stopped.
It never stopped, and you were just popping things off, and it was like, wow, this is amazing how quickly you got into this. Can you talk a little bit about a couple of those websites? And I'll put these in the show notes below. Give people kind of some places to go and where you get your models and whatnot.
Yeah. So Makerspace, Thingiverse, My Mini Factory. So especially if you have a kid who likes to play like a D&D or
figures, like guys,
figures.
Yeah.
You want to paint.
That's the big thing. Like I've seen
models of cars or planes.
You got some 40K Warhammer kids or friends.
Oh my gosh!
You're going to be printing models, 3D models all day long.
So that works great. But I think 3D Go is probably the place to start because it aggregates all those sites. Yeah. So I think that's a good place to begin. And we'll include links in the show notes so you can see the types of things you can print.
Absolutely.
If you are board gamers like we are, I tell you what, the number of things to print for your board game collection is not small as far as like organizing game boxes and stuff with,
100%.
different kinds of
you can literally spend
trays.
all your time printing stuff to organize your board games. It's incredible.
And enhance your board games. If you've got a game with tile laying, like for example, we love to play Carcassonne, but we play it with children, and that grid gets totally messed up constantly.
All the time.
You can completely print Carcassonne grids that fit on the table, and then you put the tiles in the grids to keep it all from going cattywampus. Yeah. If you're a puzzle family, you can print puzzle trays. The printing is kind of endless when it comes to accenting things. And if you have anything that you ever bought from IKEA, holy mackerel.
Oh my gosh.
There is anything you could want to print to go with an IKEA piece of furniture, or they have the IKEA pegboard. It's like a slot board kind of thing. It's called Scadis. You can print anything. So our girls just got new desks. I'm going to be printing some Scadis for their desks so that they can have bins for their pins and their tape and their different things.
Little things, yeah.
Little shelves. I'm going to print a whole bunch of Scadis for our garage, for our workbench, so we can hang up our tools and all that stuff.
And also, if you're Lego people and everything. Boy. Oh, there's so many things. So those are the fun things to do. But let's kind of come back to why we're recommending you to use a printer and going back to the title of the podcast, which is for your homeschool. Now, once you get through printing benchy and you get a bunch of fidget spinners and a couple dragon toys and stuff, and you kick the kids out and say, go play with your fun things, want to sit down and start thinking about how you're going to integrate this into your homeschool.
That's right.
I would say the first thing is you're thinking math manipulatives. That's the first one. And then also reading stuff as well.
Right. We printed like one of those reader...
the focus readers, it's like a little screen that only limits the words that you can see as you move through.
Right. Things to hold your book open. Oh, yeah. You can print all kinds of manipulatives to help. What I would do first is look around at manipulatives that are for sale that do whatever, math blocks or counter bits or whatever.
I think you could print the Right Start Math manipulative set.
I think you could.
To about 90% of all the physical things, not the cards.
Not the cards, but you could make the cards. But you still would have to buy the AL Abacus because I think that's specific enough.
Yeah, the Cotter Abacus I think is worth a $20 purchase, just for the strength and reusability and everything. But other than that, like if you're talking about the little cubes, you're talking about the fraction stuff, you're talking about protractors, all of those little tools that you're going to be using, all the geometric shapes. My goodness, you do not need to buy the wood ones.
Yeah, you could just print all of those shapes. That would be great. Yeah. So there's lots of ways. Anything for science. So anywhere you're trying to model something. We talked last episode about anatomy models, but DNA, you could print molecules if you're doing chemistry stuff. You can print models of cells if you're doing biology. Anytime that you're trying to illustrate pieces to go with science experiments, anything to do with maps. there is a tons of topography stuff that you can print. If you're studying geology, you want to study volcanoes or how river erosion works, or it could be anything. You could literally print just about anything. And somebody's already done that. Yeah. And if you look around a bit online, and there's plenty of people, there's some people that have Patreons and different things that are very affordable, and they offer all kinds of 3D print files. Yeah. So you might find one. If you do, let us know if you find one that's really great for homeschool. But anything that would be hands-on. So if you think about I'm teaching X subject, what are some of the kinesthetic things that I could do to help teach that subject? I guarantee you can find it here. The other big piece that I want to highlight is about organization. There's a lot you can do for organization for your homeschool stuff. So whether that's putting tags on your different bins, or hangers up between different files, or there's a lot you can do with the way you organize your books and stuff. I've been printing themed bookends to go with the different subjects. If you wanted to print tags to go in your home library, this is the whole Middle Ages section of our library, and this is the section on science or whatever. You can print all that stuff, because in that Bamboo Studio free program, there's a little button there that just says, add text. You just click and add text like you would in Word or any other program. You type in your text and it prints it. Wow. So in our daughter's closet, for example, I printed these hangers that says summer dresses and, her formal dresses she wears to her recitals and stuff like that for dance, and, overalls. And I was able to print all these costumes. I was able to print all these different ones for her. So, you can do the same type of stuff in your homeschool if you want to really get into the organization of things, or print custom pencil boxes for your kids, or boxes for them to keep their own manipulatives in that have their name on them, so that things to go to your parent partnership or your co-op with. All that kind of stuff you could print. Anything you want to customize, basically. Let's put it that way. So you could do this, or you could get a Cricut, and I don't have one of those yet, but you could, customize things that way too. But anything that you want to customize and organize for yourselves, you could do with this.
Absolutely. I think it kind of gives you a nice intro into this. So Ariel, recommendations, A1 Mini, AMS.
With the AMS. If you can afford to do with the AMS, if you
don't need to. It's not absolutely
You don't
required.
need to, and I've been operating for 2 months without the AMS, but now I'm I really, really want it, because, the multicolor prints is pretty alluring. Sure. But yeah, if you just want to get started into it and you just want to start printing some small things.
And it doesn't mean everything has to be the same color. Your filament can change colors. You can buy the same PLA filament that's white, black, blue, any color you want.
Yeah, I've got purple, blue, black, gray, white all over there right now. And the kids are like, where's green? Where's yellow? So I'm just going to buy more colors.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's kind of like anything, buying different colors of paper or whatever, different inks. It's the same thing to do. It's just with filament. So I think there's a lot of things you could do for your homeschool when it comes to organizing your homeschool space, customizing things for your kids, and printing manipulatives for you to use with your lessons. So hopefully this kind of basics will get you started. And next week, we're going to talk about modeling. For those of you that want to make your own things, or your kids want to make their own things.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook, and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!